Hello, Scott Baker, Precinct 23, the Montgomery County Republican Party. I'm here with some updates. I wanted to give you some more information about what's going on, some recent developments, and hope that you'll find this informative and maybe get active, get engaged, and let your voice be heard on this. The title of this one is Texas Republican Leaders Don't Trust the Voters. And that's ultimately what this comes down to. In summary, in 2024, some Texas Republicans created Rule 44 to allow removing candidates from the primary ballot. If you've seen some of my other videos, you know I've already talked about this, but I wanted to cover it again just to give you a little bit of brief history. There have been several attempts to use Rule 44 across Texas, and most of them have failed. Now the state party committee seems to be trying to remove candidates even without Rule 44 censures. The state and some county party leaders want a very small number of people to override the votes of tens of thousands of voters. So who am I? I'm a Montgomery County precinct chair in the Republican Party. I have been since around 2012. I've been a Republican election worker and judge since around 2006. I've been a resident since 2003 in Montgomery County. I've been a delegate to multiple Republican senatorial and state conventions. I was an alternate to the 2012 National Republican Convention. I've served on or chaired numerous Republican committees and subcommittees. And I'm now running for Montgomery County Chair. That is to lead the Montgomery County Republican Party. So a brief history here, or a brief overview. Counties and precincts. The state is divided up into counties, as most of you know. And each county is divided up into precincts. A precinct is the smallest political subdivision in Texas. There are 254 counties in Texas, and each county is divided into multiple precincts. Each county elects a county chair to head the Republican Party, to represent the Republican voters. What is a precinct? There are 113 precincts in Montgomery County right now. After January, there will be 121. Montgomery County is growing very rapidly, as many of you are aware. And so we've had to add more precincts at the county level. Each precinct represents approximately 5,000 voters. Each precinct elects a chair, the precinct chair, to serve on the county executive committee, which is like the governing board. They're called the CEC for short. They usually also serve as the election judge. It's the people you see behind the table when you go to vote at the election time. The county chair presides over the CEC. So what is the party? The CEC is not the Republican Party of Montgomery County. Texas Election Code defines the party as the voters who vote in the primary election. The primary election is where the Republican Party chooses their candidate to run in the general election. The precinct chair is the representative of the Republican voters in their precinct. So let's go over the rule again. The rule number 44, there's a censure process and penalties, provides that a CEC may censure an elected official for violating three-party principles or rules. As I've covered in my other videos, those can be very vague, and so there's a lot of leeway with what they can try to claim as a violation. Once censured, the SREC, or the state board, then reviews and votes on the matter. If approved, the CEC may then openly campaign against that Republican candidate using party funds and resources. And the county chair may remove that candidate from the primary ballot, according to them. So what's happening now? The attempted censures of Representatives Metcalf and Bell, HD 16 and HD 3 respectively in Montgomery County, failed. They did not have the votes. There are still some rational people on our Montgomery County CEC, and they simply did not have the votes to get them passed. So the censure efforts failed, which means they cannot do a Rule 44 against Reps Metcalf and Bell. Right now, you would think. The SREC, including our SD4 SREC reps, that's the people who represent our Senate district. The SREC is the governing body. We send senatorial district representatives. Most of Montgomery County is represented by SD4. Our reps in the SREC for SD4 are the county chair, Gwen Withrow, who's also our SREC rep, and precinct chair Dale Inman. The SREC just this past week, are moving to try to exclude our elected representatives from the ballot in the 2026 primary election. They're trying to proceed even though there hasn't been a Rule 44 censure. It's not clear how they're going to do this, but that's their effort. Here's an article from the Texas Voice by Marty McCaig. Texas GOP lays groundwork to block Trump-endorsed lawmakers from the primary ballot. Excerpt from the article, members of the State Republican Executive Committee, the SREC, the governing body of the Republican Party of Texas, met on Saturday to adopt a legislative task force report that lays the groundwork for the party to potentially bar numerous members of the Texas legislature from seeking a place on the 2026 Republican primary ballot. The vast majority of the lawmakers who could be barred from the primary ballot have been endorsed for re-election by President Trump. So, one of our own CEC members, Gary Reynolds, reached out to some of the SREC reps to try and convince them to vote against this and to stop the Rule 44 nonsense. Here's part of the response that he received from Susan Valiant, SREC SD10, who does not represent any part of Montgomery County. Good morning, Gary. Thank you for your comments. I understand your stance on the censures. However, it is the only tool we have to hold our representatives accountable to the people. Voting them out of office is not working. Too many corrupt incumbents get reelected because they have deep pockets and establishment creating a no-win situation for other candidates to run. This is an absolute fail in any way possible. This is not the only tool that they have to hold our representatives accountable to the people. In fact, the primary tool to hold our elected officials accountable is our vote. We can vote them out, especially if they're corrupt. The allegation here is that most of the incumbents in the House of Representatives, including our own, are somehow corrupt, without evidence, no presented evidence, and therefore they must remove them. She says the quiet part out loud. She gives it away here when she says voting them out of office is not working. Why is it not working? Because the people, the voters, are not voting the way the SREC wants them to. That's what this comes down to. They don't like the way that you and I are voting, so they're just going to take the candidates off the list that they don't like. So what is the effect of all this? The CEC and SREC seem to have given themselves the power to remove candidates from the primary ballot. This has been litigated before, and the courts have said before that the party does not have the right to do this. The party can verify that the candidates are qualified, but once they are verified that they are qualified to place their name on the ballot, they must place their name on the ballot. That's what the court has said before. The goal of the SREC right now, the political insiders in Austin, and some of our political insiders here in Montgomery County, is to take this back to court and try to relitigate this so that they can kick people they don't like, the insiders don't like, off of the ballot. That means less than 100 people can take away the right of tens of thousands of people to vote for our candidates. I want to give you an example of what I'm talking about here, just so you understand exactly what I mean. This is Montgomery County in the map. The blue area is House District 16. Represented by Will Metcalf. Will Metcalf is one that they're trying to censure. Will Metcalf is endorsed by Donald Trump. Will Metcalf is a Republican. In fact, here are the election results from the 2024 primary and general elections. I'm going to blow these numbers up so that you can see them a little better. In the 2024 primary election, which is the Republican Party, the Republican voters showing up at the polls and electing their nominee to be the candidate in the general election against the Democrat. Will Metcalf ran unopposed in the 2024 primary election. He got 24,109 votes. 24,109 Republicans showed up at the primary and elected Will Metcalf to be their nominee in the general election. 3,837, the number at the bottom, are the non-votes, right? That is people that voted in that election on that ballot but chose not to vote for Will Metcalf. That's less than 4,000 people out of the approximately 28,000 people. That means Will Metcalf had approximately 86% or 85% of the vote of the Republican voters in his House district. That's overwhelming support. Then we go to the general election against the Democrat candidate. Will Metcalf got 73,385 votes against his opponent, who got 17,930, and 2,772 who did not vote in this particular election. That's approximately 94,000 people who went to the polls and voted. Of the ones who chose a candidate, Will Metcalf exceeded 80% of the vote in the general election. That is unbelievably broad support in his district. The voters have unquestionably chosen Will Metcalf, Republican Will Metcalf, to be their representative in the State House. What is the SREC saying? What are the political insiders in Montgomery County saying? We don't care. We don't care how you voted. We think we know better, and we're going to throw out your votes, and we're going to put in the guy we want. This is just wrong. This is pure disenfranchisement of the voters. We, the voters, have the right to choose our candidates, not a small group of political insiders in a back room. This is what Democrats do, not Republicans. I'm actually reminded of this quote from Margaret Thatcher long ago, that socialists don't like ordinary people choosing, for they might not choose socialism. This feels a lot like the same kind of deal. This is what I like to call the deep state of the Republican Party of Texas and Montgomery County. This is what the Democrats and never Trump Republicans tried to do to President Trump. They tried to remove him from the ballot in multiple states. You can look it up. There's lots of information out there for what they did. They literally tried to keep him from the ballot. They also tried to keep him from being effective as president while he was in office, which is why I call this group the deep state. This is also what the Democrats did to Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden. The Democrat Party went to great lengths to make sure that they chose the candidate that they wanted to run in the general election, largely in opposition to their own voter base. How is this any different? So who is the deep state? The deep state of Montgomery County is the so-called steering committee. I call them the deep state because this so-called steering committee was created to actually strip authority away from the duly elected county chair. It was started by a lot of the same people when Dr. Wally Wilkerson was still the chair, who served 52 years as the chair and was basically hounded out of office rather than given due respect for building the Republican Party into what it is. And then it was used to undermine and subvert the authority of the duly elected county chair, Brian Crist. Now, they have the gavel. Gwen Withrow is the county chair. She was elected. These folks all helped her get elected. The steering committee meets regularly. They make decisions and even violate party rules at will. And they act as the deep state in Montgomery County Republican Party. That guy in the middle there, you say, he might look familiar. He's the vice chair of the party, John Boucher. He happens to be running against Will Metcalf for House District 16. He also happens to have served on the Rules Committee at the 2024 State Convention, where Rule 44 was drafted in the Rules Committee at the 2024 State Convention. Is it possible he has a vested interest in this going through and removing Will Metcalf from the ballot? The deep state, the political insiders, seem to have forgotten this principle. from our Constitution, the very first words, we the people. And instead, they want to replace it with we the party. You don't have to take my word for it. You can hear it in their own words.
We can declare them vacant.
We being the steering committee?
We being the party.
What you just heard, and what you see there in that video, is John Boucher, Vice Chairman of the Montgomery County Republican Party, candidate for House District 16, and right beside him, DJ Fike, the Secretary of the Montgomery County Republican Party, and you can't see her, she's behind that chair, Gwen Withrow, the County Chair and SREC Rep, all sitting here making a decision, trying to eject multiple duly elected precinct chairs from their seats so that they can appoint their own people into those slots and undo the vote of the people who chose them to represent them. This is not good. This is not Republican. This is not in line with Republican principles. We are the party of Lincoln, our founder. He said we must preserve the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. We are the party of Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump, neither of whom could make it onto the ballot under the current vetting criteria of the Montgomery County Republican Party. I wish that were a joke, but it's not. It's true. The vetting processes they've put in place for candidates now, and they've stated that they want to do for the voters as well in the future, would not allow two of the most popular and successful Republican presidents to be on the ballot in Montgomery County if they followed their own rules. That's unacceptable. So what can you do? Contact your precinct chair. You can find out on mctxgop.org. That is the County Republican Party website. You can get involved, attend CEC meetings, or better yet, run to be a precinct chair. You'll have an opportunity to file for that in just another month here. We desperately need good people to represent the Republican voters in their precincts all across the county and really all across the state. You can attend your precinct convention after the primaries in March. There will be a precinct convention. That is the first stage to get involved and be a delegate to the senatorial and the state conventions, which will happen next summer. The senatorial convention will be in the spring. The state convention will be in the summer. The Senate district and state conventions, by the way, are where these rules were drafted. That's where Rule 44 came from, was the state convention. We need people to go to these conventions as delegates, get involved, and make sure we vote all of this nonsense out. And you can join me. I am running for the Montgomery County chair to stop this nonsense and restore the Republican Party to sanity. I say, let the voters decide. That's the American way. We are a representative government. Ultimately, this isn't about me. This is about the future of the Republican Party. Precinct chairs are supposed to represent the Republican voters in their precinct. The county chair is supposed to represent the Republican voters in the county, not take their votes away, and not take orders from Austin on who our candidates should be. I hope this video was informative. I hope it lets you know what's going on. I hope that you'll get involved. Please like and share this video. Post your comments and feedback below. I'd love to hear from you and what you think. God bless you. God bless Texas. God bless President Trump and the United States of America. Thank you.